with authority.
Welcome to another quarantine edition of our With Authority podcast. Larry Beal, Casey Pratt, Chris Alvarez, and our special guest today, joining us from what looks like his home away from home, the ballpark, is the legend Jon Miller, your Giants broadcaster, who's joining us. And we thank you so much because, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, Jon is our first Hall of Famer. We've been doing this for about a year and a half, the podcasts, and you're our first Hall of Famer that we've had on. The rest of the guests are pretty much bums. Aside from, don't tell Gabe Kapler I said that because he might come over and bench press my house. But welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, all things considered, and as you can see, I'm out near the new bullpens at Oracle Park. The background makes it look like I am, I guess, but I'm actually at home. But I did get over to the ballpark on Wednesday, and because I had to be tested for the COVID-19 virus, and I came out negative. I'm happy to report. But I also was able to see some of the workout and batting practice, and then some of the inter-squad game they played that day. So it's my first time back at the ballpark since Bruce Bochy's last game at the end of last September. So, and it was really kind of fun to make. The first thing I wanted to look at were those new bullpens in center field. Not because I'm an aficionado of bullpens per se, but because they're bullpens. There's the visiting team and there's the home team and there's a mound and not that big a deal. The thing that was fascinating for me is that they changed the dimensions out there. So that 421 sign in deep right center, Triples Alley, which is a real signature of the ballpark, that now is 415. So it's still, if you hit a home run out there, you are going to have to earn it. But that, it's not quite what you had to do before. A straightaway center that was 399, that's now 391. So there's only one ballpark in Major League Baseball that has a shallower straightaway center field dimension than that, and that's Fenway Park, where it's 390 to straightaway center. And even then, Fenway's center field wall is 18 feet high, whereas now at Oracle Park, the fence across center field in front of those bullpens is now 7 feet high, so it's actually been reduced by about a foot. And then deep left center field, and people forget how much of a graveyard that has been. That's that spot to the right of the 382 sign where the left field wall meets the center field wall. Well, that was 404 feet to that. So many a would-be home run has gone to die out there. Well, even that has been moved in 5 feet, so that's now 399 because of those bullpens. So anyway, the early returns from these intra-squad games and the workouts is that the ball is going out to center field on balls that didn't used to go out. So I asked Gabe Kapler about it on a Zoom call like this.
Yes.
Because we're not allowed, to interact with the manager, with the coaches, the players. We're completely separate from them. So the days of going to the batting cage or stopping by the clubhouse or going into the manager's office before a game or a workout, those are something from the past now. But they do have arranged some Zoom meetings where we can talk to Gabe and the Giants broadcasters and whatnot. And he has been so helpful for us in this time, and I think with all of the members of the press in general. But and he said that it's true that there are balls going out that even he can see from the times he's been there, that he thought, well, that ball never would have gone out in the past. But at the same time, he pointed out that the workouts and the batting practice, all that kind of stuff has been happening mostly in the daytime, where the ball tends to carry better anyway, even in the past. And the sun's been shining, and it's been beautiful where the ball seems to carry better. And, and really, the dimension 399 to center, that was not a deep dimension. Even the 404 to deep left center, not so unusual, maybe a little deeper than the norm. 421 was a little bit deeper than most ballparks, but it was always about the wind and the weather. And even in the past, when it was a clear day and there was no wind blowing, the ball carries well, and that park play is fairly small. So he said he thought maybe we don't have the full idea of what these new dimensions will mean based on what we've seen so far, because it's been in a sort of a climate that would favor the hitter anyway in this ballpark. So we'll see once these night games start how it plays. And I'm anxious to see that.
Be interesting if Oracle turned into a hitter's park suddenly as a result of these changes, but we have to see. We're going to do a lot of baseball talk, but I wanted to start someplace else because I did some exhaustive research on you last night. On the Googler, boy, you have a lot. You're very popular on the Google machine. There are a lot of Jon Miller listings there. But I realized you are on Instagram, which I was not expecting. And John, you post more than my daughters do. So some concern with that. But at least you're not giving me shots of your food, because I'm not that interested in what you had for breakfast. I mean, I love you, but I'm not that interested. But you're on the gram. When did that happen? And you're prolific on the gram.
Well, it's funny because lately I did do an Instagram after I got to the ballpark. It kind of inspired me on Wednesday at Jon Miller, Jon Miller, SF Giants. Check it out.
Got to get that.
Trying to get my ratings up. You people, of all people, understand what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Because those the followers and the likes and all that, for me, the only way I can translate those are, oh, there you go. Yeah. Check it out.
Good check mark, too. It's verified.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm bona fide. Yeah.
Well, you're Hall of Famer.
So, but when you get the likes and the followers, to me, those are like ratings. So, you want to get a good rating, but I kind of ran out of steam there for a while with no baseball and all the things that were happening, the virus seeming to come back and get worse than before even, and all the different things. I just thought, well, because for me, it's always mostly about baseball or something to get a laugh or, whatever. But so it just didn't seem to, I just didn't feel like I had anything to add to anybody's discussion at that point. But my kids were the ones who encouraged me to do it. And the first thing I said was, and I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, near the end of spring training, we all got together down in Arizona. And I said, well, if I do that, you have to have content. And I don't want to have content. I have enough work already as it is. And they said, well, we think, Dad, that this is the way people interact now on social media. And it would make you a little more current. So they kind of knew what the right button to push was, because we all want to stay current. I don't want to be some old guy who's always talking about the old. Yeah, I remember the way it used to be. And, those were great days and back then. And, so I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the current kind of a guy who understands the current player and talks about current things and so on and so forth. So when they said that, I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe it is a good idea. How do you do it? I don't know how to do it. So we'll coach you. We'll help you along. And, they told me about hashtags and, the whole bit. So anyway, I started posting a few things baseball related. And it was really fun because, you do have a conduit to the fans. And all of a sudden, they make comments to you, and I could make comments back. Or the kids pointed out to me, says, when somebody leaves a comment, you should go in and say that you like it. You push the button or push the heart button or next to the comment. And so people like that. And so the other thing that happened was my son said, now people may go on to look at the people you follow they'll be interested in that, some people. So then I thought about that. I thought, well, I want that to be impressive. So I thought, well, I really enjoy going to Europe and going to Rome. So I found some accounts that had great photos of Rome and whatnot, and Venice and wherever, Paris and London and places I like to go. And so I started following them, the ones I thought had the best pictures. And then I thought, oh, plus I want to, look like a man of substance, not just baseball. So I started following the Louvre Museum in Paris, and the British Museum, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and all the big top museums, around the country, whether I've been to them or not. And so I just wanted to. And then I started realizing that when I go through and check the actual posts of the places and people that I follow, I really look forward to actually seeing those posts. And so let me just give you a little bit of an insight. There's a great one in Rome called Swiss Guard Wife. And it's an Australian woman who married a Swiss Guard. And they live at the Vatican in the Swiss Guard married couples quarters and whatnot. And so she's always taken a run in the Vatican gardens, and where generally the public can't go. And she goes to Mass in St. Peter's Basilica early in the morning when nobody's there. It's not really open yet to the public, things like that. And and then she and the Swiss Guard also like to go out and drink, excellent scotch and smoke Cuban cigars or whatever. So anyway, so I kind of enjoy checking in on that. But then a couple of the Roman people that I was following contacted me through Instagram, and then we met them the next time we went to Rome, and they took us around and so on and so forth. One of them gave us a private tour of the Vatican Museum one night this past October. And anyways, it's a funny thing because my wife said to me, Janine said, it's this Instagram thing seems so silly, but it's kind of enriched your life a little bit, you have to admit. So and I realized that was true. So so I enjoy it, and I don't know if it's going to continue, but I think it is kind of a cool way to keep in touch. And back in the days, I broadcast the games on the radio, some TV and whatnot. And years ago, I was at a TV station where I did the nightly news and doing the thing that you do. But I had this idea: I'm going to do after a game the stand-up. You know how you do your report, and then you finish it off, and I'm Joe Smith from Oracle Park for ABC Channel 7 News, or whatever. The stand-up. So I called it an Instagram stand-up selfie, and so you used to only have the 15 seconds. Buster Posey had a home run. Pablo Sandoval had 2 doubles and a great defensive play, and the Giants beat the Dodgers 3-1 tonight here at Pac-Bell Park. I'm Jon Miller with an Instagram stand-up selfie, and people liked him, and it was pretty easy. Now you can do a full minute, and so and then I learned how to use the what do you call it, the
IGTV.
The IGTV for you could do longer kind of things, and then I learned how to do use the iMovie, where you can edit.
Larry loves iMovie. We always
so I not only can do my stand-up, but I can do B-roll and all kinds of things. So I'm kind of into it now, and it could be that the joke on me is that the more sophisticated I've gotten with it, maybe the less interesting it is to anybody. I don't know, but I'm enjoying it. Actually, is the main thing.
When we see you on TikTok, we know that you've gone too far. But the other, let Casey and Chris in on this here.
Well, actually, I've been monitoring the live chat comment. A fan named Daniel Dowers commented before you even talked about your stand-up selfies about how much she actually loves the stand-up selfies. So, those are resonating with the fans. They're also saying you look really good. I mean, speaking of staying current, what have you done to look in shape like you're looking right now? You look great.
Well, I guess to put it in a phrase, I decided to start eating like an adult, like a grown-up, and but I that's really I didn't do anything in particular, but I don't ever eat sugar. In August it'll be about 3 years.
Wow.
And I don't eat wheat, so no bread, no pasta. And then I was doing that because I heard a radio show on NPR about those things, and they told me some things while I was driving home from the ballpark that I hadn't realized. I just want something easy, something simple. I don't want to have to study or do something hard. And I didn't want to do something that just lasted for a while and then went back to the other stuff. So I thought, well, what could be easier than that? The sugar thing. I'll know exactly what I'm not going to have. And and then the same with the wheat thing. And I won't have bread. I won't have pasta. So, and I did feel better almost immediately. And then I talked to my doctor, and he said back then, says, that's great. Keep that up. And also maybe go one step further and go kind of low carbs. And I was like, well, what does that mean, low carbs? And he said, basically, it just means get your carbs from vegetables and salads, things like that. And I said, oh, okay, well, I can do that. And so that, and during the pandemic here, while we were sort of isolating out here at the beach where we live, they said, only do the essential things. When you need to go to the grocery store to get some supplies, whatever, okay, put a mask on and do that. But and maybe get out in the neighborhood and take some walks. So without baseball, I not only don't have the box scores to read and all the baseball news to follow, I don't have any stats. I like to check the top 10 hitters and who's leading the league in home runs and RBIs and, all those kind of things. And so I have this thing on my phone that counts your steps. And I realized, wow, it's keeping my stats for me. So I take a long walk, and, my wife maybe goes to the grocery store in Half Moon Bay, and I go into Half Moon Bay with her, and then I get out of the car, go to the beach, and walk home, which is about a 7.5 mile walk. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get a lot of steps and a lot of miles, and I'm like, yeah, pretty good numbers today. Yeah. And so that's it. Just that's about all. But I think I feel good is the main thing, and I think we all want to live and do the things we enjoy and whatnot. But I think I was kind of overdoing it in certain things, and I remember the first year we got to Thanksgiving. I don't know, we had 25 people at the house, friends, relatives, and there were pies and cakes and whatnot. And I was like, I guess it wouldn't kill me if I had like a small piece of pumpkin pie or whatever. And then when I thought about it, I thought, well, my system is so pristine right now. I have all these months with no sugar whatsoever. It'd probably make me sick. And just the thought of it no longer even seemed enticing. So I really haven't had any problem staying away from that kind of stuff. My wife, we went to Europe last October after the season. I went to Japan and then went to Europe, and which I'm glad we did now that everything's shut down and we Americans are not allowed to go anywhere. So it was good that we went while we could. But my wife sort of, when we got to Europe, she went on the tiramisu tour of Venice and Rome, and trying to find the best gelato spot in Rome, and so on and so forth. So and I enjoyed that. Enjoyed watching her do it, and had no problem not doing it for myself. I just thought I'll get a headache, and who knows, I'll feel sick, and so on and so forth. So I just that's it. It's a long way of saying I just kind of changed the way I did things, and I'm kind of into it now and kind of enjoying it.
You know, speaking of changes, the 60-game abbreviated season, everything going on with COVID-19, how different is this season going to be for you? What are you going to do about calling games? You're going to have to do it from home or from the ballpark when they're on the road, calling it remotely?
Well, yeah, we're going to do the games. Every game, wherever the team is, we're going to be broadcasting the game from our booths at Oracle Park. So we're just going to go to the home ballpark every night for the game, starting Monday with the exhibition game with Oakland from the Coliseum. Now, we could go to the Coliseum. They would have booth space for the radio broadcast. The television guys cannot travel at all, not allowed. I guess because the television, there's not just the announcers, but all the other members of the crew. So, but Dave Fleming and I could go to Oakland, but we thought, well, no, this will be our dress rehearsal, our one chance to do the game, the road game, from a TV monitor and see how that goes and what works and what doesn't work and maybe what else we're going to need. Right now, we've had a lot of meetings with the Giants and Major League Baseball on what we need from that video feed from LA when we open the season. And I felt like, okay, we need the game, the telecast, but we also need, Dave was very adamant about this, and he was right. We need that little, what they call the score bug in the corner of the screen. And we need that. What's the count, how many outs, but also the pitch comes in and it shows what the radar gun reading was. We need that for those games. But also, we need another shot, a separate shot, that's an anchored shot. You would call it the high home shot that shows the entire field, everybody on the field. And the case in point would be a hitter hits a deep drive down the left field line, and it's going to be a home run if it's fair. Well, is it fair or not? When you're at the game, I always can, if I have a question, I just take a quick glance at the third base umpire and see what his call is. And, if it's fair ball, home run. And then let the crowd roar it, except that ain't going to happen this year. So there won't be a crowd. But I need to see that umpire. So from that high home shot, I would be able to look away from my game monitor to that full field monitor and see what the umpire called. I just need to be able to see that. Any play-by-play guy will need to see that. So, and I saw one of those games from South Korea on ESPN because I wanted to see a ball game. And this team, I don't know, the Dinos or whatever team it was, the Wyverns, the Kia Tigers, they hit 2 straight home runs, and now a third guy hits one deep down the left field line, and it's going to be a home run if it's fair. So I'm watching on my big screen, high definition television with a great picture, and I'm looking, and it was twilight time there in South Korea. So there was still a little bit of sunshine on left field. Some sun was shining, and on the bleachers. And I'm looking to see if it's fair or foul, and then I just can't make out where the ball is. So I don't have a clue. And the announcer says, home run. He paused for a moment, and I thought, oh, maybe he could see the umpire. Well, I got excited. Wow, 3 straight home runs, pretty good. And then they get a shot of the guy who hit the home run, and he shrugs his shoulders and veers away from second base and cuts across the infield and goes back to the plate. And the announcer says, oh, well, apparently that was a foul ball, so no home run. And I realized, well, this guy is sitting at his home in Chicago broadcasting this game off a TV monitor. He didn't have any different view of it that I had here in my house in San Francisco Bay Area. So that's what we told him. We said, we need to be able to see that umpire and what the call is. And there, any other number of uses for that in terms of how's the defense playing? Are they in the overshift? Are they playing him to pull? Are they playing him the other way? Are they playing straight up? A guy comes around third. Is he being waved home by the third base coach? Is he being held up? Did he run through the sign? Whatever. We want to be able to see all those things the way we can see them when we're at the ballpark. So I thought that was the shot, and we should be able to get that kind of a second shot. We even suggested that for those road games when we're home, that if they could put that shot on the big Jumbotron screen or whatever that high definition screen is called now, which is spectacular, if they could just put that on for the whole game, I could have the monitor in front of me because I don't need to see the field. There's nothing happening on the field. I just watch the game on the monitor, and that's my lifeline. I can't look away from that monitor. Everything that I'm broadcasting is happening there. But I might want to check that defense where I could just take a quick look out at that Jumbotron. And I think they're going to be able to do that for us. So we'll see how it works. But then we're all just guessing right now and trying to figure out the best way because we don't know at this point.
Yeah.
Jon, you touched upon it briefly there. You talked about the roar of the fans. They're not going to be there. So how, as a radio broadcaster, do you paint with pictures? How do you do that when sometimes you lay out for the crowd or you can hear, crack the bat, the crowd? So how are you planning on broadcasting? Have you had a chance to maybe even practice what this would be like? I mean, it's so unique and rare. Yeah,
well, when I was a kid, I was such a huge baseball fan. The Giants games growing up in Hayward, for me, were radio games because they only televised the games in L.A. Can you imagine that? The only televised baseball we would get in a whole season were the 9 games they played in L.A. That's it. And and that was a big event whenever they had one of those telecasts. But it was a radio thing. And so I was such a fan that I bought a tabletop baseball game called Stratomatic. Did you ever hear that?
Oh, yeah.
It still exists. And so I thought it was more fun to play Stratomatic if I broadcast the games while I was playing it. And I would do the crowd noises, the public address announcement. It was pretty bizarre if you happened to walk in on me, swinging, there's a base hit. And, I did the public, the right fielder, number 9, Roger Maris. Number 9. I did the organist. Dun, 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 dun. It was a pretty bizarre scene. And now I thought, wow, all these years later, I may end up going full circle. I'll have to do the crowd myself. I'll just be on that mic and just go, base hit to left field. And, so I think probably I won't do that, but Darren Chan, our great, maybe, yeah. Darren Chan has gone through. I didn't realize it was so sophisticated, the system he's got, but he has, for broadcasting the game, a system where he could also record a record album. He has all these different things going on different tracks, which includes the crowd noise. So he's gone through those tracks where you just hear the crowd noise, and he's extracted, base hits, doubles, triples, home runs at the Giants' home ballpark. So he has specific kinds of crowd noise for just the right kind of a play. He even has things like when the Dodgers hit a home run in San Francisco, because that's different than another team hitting a home run, because there's generally a lot of Dodger fans in attendance. So that crowd, when the Dodgers do something good in San Francisco, is different. And he's got that, as well as the crowd noise from Dodger Stadium, from Chase Field in Arizona, from Coors Field in Denver, and Petco Park, all these places. Now, whether he's going to have a chance to use those or not, I don't know. But I was thought, wow, this guy is a pro and so impressive. The professionalism that he's showing to be prepared for this, just in case. Now, some people are saying that Major League Baseball has sent out generic crowd noise to all the teams, and a lot of teams may play those over the public address system in their ballpark. So we may already have crowd noise, whether we want it or not, from these road games. I don't know what the Giants' plans are for it, but so we'll see how it all works out. But when I was at the park on Wednesday, it was kind of fun. Joey Bart hit a ball into left center field for a hit, and he was able to stretch it into a double. Now, there was no crowd noise. There was no sound whatsoever. And you hear all these guys in the field shouting, second, or whatever they're shouting for the throw to go to the cutoff man. And then they're shouting at the cutoff man as he's about to get the throw what he should do with it, and or whether he should cut it off in the first place. And for me, that was kind of fun to hear all that. You don't hear that during a game because of the crowd.
I've been listening to the Giants for a long time. I grew up in Fresno, so, grew up listening to you and the guys. And it seems like, for Giants fans, you guys are a little bit of rock stars, and you guys get along so well. Can you talk about the camaraderie in the booth and how well you guys get along? Because it plays that way on air, on the radio. So can you talk about your booth?
Well, it's funny because in a way, we've been together many times in this whole period, these last few months, but always on Zoom. We've been doing a thing every Wednesday night on Zoom. It's a TV show, really, where we interview Gabe Kapler, Farhan Zaidi, Scott Harris, the GM, players, former players. We've had Barry Bonds on. We've had Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell, as well as a lot of the current Giants players. And we've been able to talk with each other. We start that show, or have been on the Wednesdays. I think we just did our last one, thank God, on Wednesday. But, we start the first 10 minutes or so almost like the post-game rap, where the four of us, have some laughs and tell some stories and whatnot. And then when the whole thing's over, we do another little round between the four of us. But, so I in that way, I haven't missed those guys. But in another way, it underscores just how much I miss them. We all enjoy each other so much. And Dwayne Kuiper put it in a beautiful way the other day when we were talking to Gabe Kapler. He said, really, I think what I want to do, and it seems like we can't do it because we have to stay distanced and isolated from each other, even when we're going to be all at the ballpark at the same time doing these games. He says, I just really want to figure out a way, maybe we could get up into a suite where there's extra room, and the four of us can just all be up there together, see each other, see how things are going with the families, and just enjoy each other's presence, because we have not been able to do that. And it was a very kind of a sweet thought, and I realized that I felt exactly the same way. So I think, and what we're feeling, I'm sure, is not any different from what anybody else is feeling in the whole country. My daughter lives in New York City, so she was in the belly of the beast, there when New York was the epicenter of the pandemic in this country. And it was tense, and we were concerned about her and her well-being. And, she lived in a little studio apartment, and she was stuck there all day, every day. It was a very stressful time. She heard the sirens, the ambulances going by and whatnot. And it was her birthday in mid-April. So all of our kids and us, we got together, was on Zoom. And our daughter, Misha, who lives over in Alameda, is a mediator. And so she does a lot of Zoom kind of stuff. So she introduced us to that back in March when spring training got banged. We immediately had a Zoom meeting with the families. First I ever heard of it. And they were telling us their feelings about how they thought we should get home from Arizona to be safe. And so that was our first introduction to Zoom. And now, what is it, 4.5 months later? Although it seems like years later. Yeah. I think this is my unofficially 7,493rd Zoom. So had quite a few Zooms in that time. But so anyway, my favorite joke about the whole thing was the new calendar, the new COVID-19 pandemic calendar. February, it's a leap year. February had 29 days. March had 63 days. April had 147 days, and so on and so forth. So I think that's about right. It seems like maybe a couple of years ago that we were last in spring training. But anyway, so that's the way that we've been doing it with the Zoom, and I'm doing it with you guys. Yesterday, I did it with Mike Mangus up. I think it's the ABC station up in Reading, where my mom and my sisters and my brother live. And Mike has been up there forever. Great Giants fan. We talk about the Giants. So it's been kind of fun to check in with people all over the country. We had that birthday party for my daughter. She baked her own cake in New York, put candles on it, and then she held it up so we could see it. And then we all sang happy birthday to her, and then she blew out the candles. So nice. It was kind of nice that we were able to do that, and yet at the same time bittersweet, because then you realize, man, we miss her so badly.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have had any of the virtual cake anyway because of the sugar. So
yeah, it was the best way for me to enjoy her birthday cake.
I'm gonna. You reminded me of a story from years ago that these two whippersnappers might be surprised to hear, but you, of course, will know this because growing up in Hawaii, I used to watch a legendary sportscaster by the name of Les Kiter. And Les was big time, and at one stage in his career, he used to do Hawaii Islanders baseball, which was a AAA affiliate of then the Pirates, and they're actually affiliated with the Padres as well. That's a whole other story. But anyway, he was the last guy in the country doing baseball recreates. And so I could see you're smiling, so you know the whole drill, how it used to work. But this was in the days of the AP or UPI, actually. The game, he would get notes that would be printed up on a ticker tape, and some producer would hand him the tape that would say so-and-so, Rick Lancelotti, base hit to right, whatever. And so he had like a little pencil that would be his, like, there's the crack of the bat right there, and they had crowd noise, and he would do the whole game recreating it from a radio studio. But this might come into play for you because occasionally the feed from the ballpark would go down, and then so Les had no information. And so he was making up all these stories. Oh, there's a dog that ran out onto the field. They can't catch him. He's eluding security. Anything you could come up with to buy time for the ticker tape to start printing again so you could go back to the game, and just making up these bizarre stories about things that were not happening. So if your audio and video goes down, that you just remember, dog ran out on the field, a balloon got loose in left. I mean, we could write these down. We'll go back and listen to Les's old tapes, but you may have to resort to the old recreate. But,
and Les Kiter also, when the Giants and Dodgers left New York, he was a New York sportscaster.
Yeah.
And the Giants and Dodgers left New York, which, when you think back to it now, what an incredible story that was. 2 New York teams left New York. But Les Kiter would broadcast the Giants games wherever they were playing as a recreation, a telegraphic. In those days, it was the Western Union, the telegram company, would have somebody in that ballpark to send a shorthand code via ticker tape to the studio where Les would do those games. And he was well known by a lot of people, even though he didn't do the Giants or Dodger games when they were actually in New York. But then when they left, all of a sudden he was doing those games. And people who were big fans who still wanted to know what was happening with Willie Mays could do it through Les's recreations. My story, though, about the recreation that I sort of favor, because most of them did exactly the way you described it. They had crowd noises. They had a crack of the bat. They had all this stuff. to make it sound like they were actually at the game.
Yeah.
And I've heard some of these, and it really sounded like they were at the game. Very impressive. But in the 30s, Red Barber, Hall of Fame broadcaster, when he would do recreations, I think he might have been doing the Cincinnati Red games, or had moved to Brooklyn for the Dodgers, but the road games were generally recreated. He would sit in the studio right next to the ticker machine. And those old ticker machines were loud. And that was the only sound effect. It was Red's voice and this ticker machine going, bing, 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 bing. You know, I was printing stuff out. And so he had no pretense of being at a ballpark or trying to make it sound like it was at the ballpark. But I'm getting it right off. And he would take the thing as the ticker tape, and he would do it in real time with the ticker tape machine. Now, my favorite recreation story, there was an old-time sportscaster here in the Bay Area named Bud Foster. When I was a kid, Bud Foster, I knew him because he was on Channel 7, but also he did the Cal football and basketball games. And I think that was on KGO. And Don Klein, who was the KCBS sportscaster, he did the Stanford football and basketball. And they both did minor league baseball before that. And generally, when the teams were on the road, they recreated the games. Well, the way Bud Foster did it, he would start the broadcast about 10 or 15 minutes after the game started. Let's say the game was being played up in Portland, Oregon. So he would have somebody at the studio with the ticker machine, and they would fill out a score sheet for that half inning. And then they would bring that into Don Klein, and he'd say, good evening and welcome. Tonight the Seals are in Portland, and we're ready for, San Francisco Seals baseball. And he would broadcast the game off that score sheet. And while that was happening, they'd bring him in the score sheet for the last of the first inning. And that's the way they would do it. So he said one night the Seals batted in the top of the fifth inning. And then they went to commercial. And they didn't have the last of the fifth inning. Something, had gone wrong with the ticker machine. And he said, well, what are we going to do there? We don't know what's going on. So then the guy said, well, the top of the sixth inning has come in. I've got that. He says, all right, well, give that to me. So he comes out of the commercial and he says, okay, here we are. Now we're supposed to be going into the last of the fifth inning. Portland's supposed to be batting here. And this is very unusual. I've never seen it before. But the Seals, who just batted in the fifth inning, are just going to go ahead and stay up. And now they're going to bat here in the top of the sixth inning. Very unusual. And at some point, the Portland Beavers will also have two straight innings where they'll stay up. So let's see how it goes. And then he went ahead and just did it as if that actually was the way it played out. So, and I thought that was pretty. He didn't have to make up anything or, create a rain delay or
dog on the field
or anything else. He just moved on as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Oh, they're just going to stay up now and have their sixth inning. Here we go.
That's funny. So people are going to kill us if we don't get to some actual baseball questions here. It's good to hydrate right there. 60-game season, and we really have no idea what to expect out of anybody at this point. So what is your outlook for the Giants, given that we're entering into the great unknown? And do you think we'll even be able to complete 60 games, given that the teams are not in a bubble or anything like that?
Well, and that's the worry. That's the big question. Will they be able to do it? And so I'm hopeful. The Giants players, they all talk about being accountable to each other, accountable to the group, and they've been very big on that. Everybody has to. It's really being done on the honor system, because when the game's over, the guys go home. When the workouts are over, they go home. Or the guys who are staying in hotels, they go back to their hotel. And then while they're on their own, they need to be responsible. They need to be accountable and make sure that they don't go out with crowds and whatnot. They need to have their masks. and do only the essential things. And so we'll see, because if one guy takes a risk, then he could be the guy who comes into the ballpark the next day and spreads it to many of his teammates. And I know that the Major League Soccer is underway, and instead of their season, they're having a month-long tournament, and that's the way they're playing it out. And I think they're in a bubble, just the way the NBA players are going to be in Orlando at Disney World. Well, they've had games that have been canceled because too many guys got the virus. They had 2 full teams who actually dropped out because they just couldn't field a legitimate team because of the spread of the virus. So, and we'll see how it works for the players themselves. The New York Times NBA writer, Mark Stein, has written some really interesting columns already about what it's like for him to be down there, because there are a certain number of media people will be allowed inside the bubble, and he's going through the whole protocol of all the testing and isolation and quarantining that he's having to go through to be able to eventually be put inside that bubble. So, and I tip my cap to him, and I hope it really works, because the nature of that game, those guys are banging into each other all the time. Right. So if any one guy has it, all of a sudden you could have 2 full teams who have it after one game. So we'll see. So the baseball, baseball has a little distance in some ways built into it. The real question is the catcher, who's got the hitter right next to him, the umpire right behind him. The umpires are going to wear masks, but the hitter's not going to wear a mask. First baseman, when there's a runner over there, he may have to play on the bag with him. There may be pick-off throws and so on and so forth. But by and large, most of the players are, most of the time, well away from the others. So hopefully this is going to work, and I think we'll know soon enough if it's going to.
Yeah. By the way, since you were plugging your Instagram account earlier, we did an interview, a podcast with Dan Straley, the former Oakland A, who is now in the Korean Baseball League.
He's with my team. He's with the Lotte Giants.
The Lotte Giants, exactly. Yeah. But isn't that a Yomiuri Giants cap you're wearing from the Japan Baseball League?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And they're underway now as well. We went to Japan at the end of last season. So one of the things I was trying to build my step numbers, on my app, get some good stats. And we walked over to the Tokyo Dome.
The Big Egg.
The Big Egg. And and they had their souvenir store open. So I went in and bought myself a cap. I think it's a cool looking cap.
So I was reading, and Wikipedia, you never know what you're going to get. But it said, and I've heard you do Scully many times, it said you also do impersonations of Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Babe Ruth? I never heard Babe Ruth.
I've heard Vin Scully, too.
Oh, yeah. But so what's your favorite amongst those? And could any of those, if you do Vinny, can you do Vinny doing Adios Pelota? I know this is like a cross-cut mashup here.
Well, I don't do Al Michaels. I used to do as a joke. When Al, years ago, when he came and did the Giants games, he started with the Giants the year I started with the Athletics. We came to the Bay Area big league teams at the same time. And he grew up with Vin Scully, and he sounded just like Vin Scully, like he was doing. So I just used, it was just a joke where I would have Al and Vinny doing a game together. And Vinny would be like a beautiful night at Dodger Stadium. Dodger baseball brought to you by Farmer John. Freshly dressed, Eastern-fed, pure pork sausage. Mm-mm. Well, let's check in with the ball game in San Francisco now. And here's Al Michaels. Well, thank you, Vinny. A beautiful night here in San Francisco. Pull up a chair. The Giants with a 3-2 lead. It's been a marvelous game so far. But now you're starting in L.A. Let's go back to you, Vinny. All right, Al, thank you so much. Now this is Vin Scully, and this is Al Michaels. good night, Al. Good night, Vin. And so I don't know. I did this a few times, and word got back to Al that I was doing Al. And we were at Yankee Stadium, and it was an ABC game, and Al says, "Hey, I heard you do me. I got to hear you do me." I said, "Not really. And it's not. I don't do it. Oh no, I want to hear you do it." And I said, "Well, it's just kind of a. I know. It's just. I just want to hear you do it." So, and so I did. Al and Vinny sounding exactly the same, and he's like, "Oh." So I felt kind of bad because, and Al was already one of the premier play-by-play guys in the country. But it is true, if you ever have a chance to hear a tape of Al back in the early 70s or when he came to the Giants, I mean, I remember hearing him on the 72 World Series on the radio when the A's played the Reds. And I thought, and I had never heard Al at that point. And because he was the Reds broadcaster, we didn't hear those games. And I thought, Vin Scully is doing the World Series. Why is Vin Scully doing the World Series? And it's not the Dodgers. And then I found out, oh, that's Al Michaels. So that was just an oddity. So the Babe Ruth thing, when I did the Baltimore games, Babe Ruth was born and raised in Baltimore. He grew up in Baltimore. And the Camden Yards ballpark out in center field, or shallow right center field, is the location where his dad's bar used to be. And so the Babe used to cavort in the outfield of what is now Camden Yards. And the house in which he was born is very close, just, 3 or 4 blocks away from Camden Yards. And that's been turned into a museum, the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum. And a really great museum if you happen to go to Baltimore. So they had this thing that they put in the, I guess in the entrance of the Babe Ruth Museum, one of those Disney kind of things, audio animatronic figures of the Babe to welcome you into the museum. And they asked me if maybe I could do an impression of the Babe. So they gave me some tapes of the Babe and his speech patterns. And so there was a script I had to follow. So that's the only time I ever really did the Babe. I don't know if it was any good, but that's all there is to the Babe. And Howard Cosell, I don't do Howard Cosell. I did something with Roy Firestone. You remember Roy Firestone had the
Absolutely
interview show. And so, and Roy's a really funny guy, but he was doing a serious interview show. And but when I would be a guest on the show, he would want to have some fun with it. So we did a thing where I did Vin Scully, he did Howard Cosell, and I think the idea was that the two guys, Vinny and Howard, are reminiscing about the old days of the Dodgers and Giants being in New York. And he had a line from an old Broadway musical or whatever, and yes, I remember it well, whatever. And so that's all we did. And so I don't. It was Roy who did a great spot on Howard Cosell, but
well, he had a show in Vegas for years.
We did do a bit where, which was my idea. Al Michaels was doing the Olympic hockey, where he had the famous line, do you believe in miracles? Yes. And the United States beats the Soviet Union, which seemed to be impossible. And my idea was, what if Howard Cosell had been Al's partner? Would he ever have been able to get that line out? And so, I'm doing Al, doing the play-by-play, and we get, and here we go, only 5 seconds to go. And, and Howard's like, yes, alfalfa, only 5 seconds for the rendezvous with destiny, or, whatever he's doing. And I says, 2, 1, do you believe? You better believe I believe it. Yeah. And so Howard just kind of takes over. And so we had kind of a laugh with it. So, because Howard would do that, right? I mean, on Monday Night Football, there'd be a guy running for a touchdown, and Howard would just take over the play-by-play from Frank Gifford. He's down to the 40, the 30. He's gonna go all the way, Giffaroo. There he is to the 10, and he would take it, and because he was Howard Cosell. So
yeah, big time. Well, you're big time. You're Hall of Famer. So we thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to see you and hear you on Giants broadcasts again, and starting in only a few days. And as we say aloha, could you give us one adios pelota for the fans? Because we hope we see a lot of that. Giants fans want to see a lot of that in the new smaller confines.
Yeah, the adios pelota really was just when Sammy Sosa was hitting all those home runs. We had a Sunday night baseball game at Wrigley Field. And I remember in the movie The Natural, where Roy Hobbs would hit a home run, you'd hear the announcer go, goodbye, Mr. Spalding, or whatever. So I thought maybe Sammy Sosa, I could have a similar kind of a thing if he hits a home run in our telecast. And then I would kind of settled on adios, senor baseball, or, whatever. Or adios, senor pelota. And then they pointed out to me, he says, well, pelota is the feminine in Spanish. So you couldn't really say Mr., it would be Ms. or, Mrs. And I thought, well, I want it to be a kind of a macho thing. It's a home run. So then I came up with the adios pelota, and he hit a home run. So I used the adios pelota. So then later on, Pablo Sandoval hit a home run for the Giants. And so I said, adios pelota. And Pablo liked it. And the next time I saw him, he said, hey, adios pelota. I like it. And so I thought, well, every time Pablo hits a home run, I'll say adios pelota. And then any of the Hispanic guys would hit a home run, I'd say adios pelota. And then all of a sudden, Pablo went to the Red Sox, and the Giants didn't really have any Hispanic home run hitters per se. So then Buster Posey hit a home run, and I just said, way back, and adios pelota. And I'm thinking, Buster Posey, but then Buster, he kind of liked it too. So, so I don't always use it, but I kind of then there was a opening day a few years back, still trying to live this down, where Hunter Pence breaks up a game late in the game with a grand slam. Just a great moment, very exciting. And way back, and adios pelota, a grand slam for Buster Posey's good friend Hunter Pence. And I'm looking at Dave as I'm saying this, and Dave's like, and like, what are you doing? Are you idiot? What's God? You having a breakdown over there or what? So anyway, then the players ended up having a good fight. Hunter Pence actually took his Instagram and Twitter, and in his little bio, he changed it to, add Hunter Pence, Buster Posey's good friend. And then he made a selfie in the clubhouse, Buster sitting on a couch watching another game on the TV, and Pence right behind him, taking the selfie, saying, with my good friend, Buster Posey, before today's game. And so anyway, so they had fun with it. And I realized that I got so into at that point when Pence hits the grand slam, going into this adios pelota, that I kind of neglected the actual main part of the job, which is like, who hit it? Things like that. So, I think it's, whatever. I grew up with Russ Hodges with Tell It Bye Bye Baby, and Lon Simmons, Tell It Goodbye. And I would get goosebumps when I'd hear, one of those. And, Harry Carey had It Might Be, It Could Be, it is a home run, and so on and so forth. So, but in terms of a home run call, occasionally, if it's in my mind, then maybe I'll use it. But I don't know how you could do any of that stuff if there's no crowd in the ballpark, though.
Well, we're about to find out. We're going to see.
Yeah. 6:40 first pitch on Monday from Oakland. 6:45 Tuesday, another exhibition. And then opening night, 7:08 p.m. next Thursday for Dodger Stadium. Although we will only be virtually at Dodger Stadium.
And always on Instagram at Jon Miller, SF Giants.
Yeah, help me out. Check my Instagram. Tell me, say you like it. Follow me.
Your call,
you won't be sorry. Yeah.
The wide world of sheltering in place sports, which was a roller hockey, broom, skateboard, play-by-play thing. I don't even know what that was, but it's very funny. So people should watch just for that, if nothing else.
Yeah, and we had the guys actually, that game was played. Isaac and his younger brother Ezra, up near Lake Superior in Wisconsin. Well, they were on a family trip, isolating from everybody else at this house, and because they were all by themselves, then they played this. They called it bicycle skateboard polo, and they sent me a video of it, so I edited it down and I did call it the wide world of sheltering in place sports, and it was great because at the very end, the young guy on the skateboard gets the winning goal in sudden death, and he goes, yeah, and his older brother Isaac on his bicycle is like, ah, and I put it in slow motion. I said, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, very clearly on display here. And so anyway, we had fun with it, and we've been looking for things to do. So those were the early stages of this sheltering in place world.
Well, good fun, and we've had great fun talking to you, and we will see you doing an actual game, a real game. Yes!
Thank God.
Thank God. If you need, tell Darren Chan he can run a cable to my house, and I will stream. I'll be the crowd if you need that. We don't take turns. Yeah.
A good one. That's, Dave Fleming thought, how about let's get like 20, 30 Giants fans on Zoom and put them up on the scoreboard, and they could go, let's go Giants, or they did get a base hit, they all cheer, and we actually have real fans doing real cheering.
That's a good idea.
I don't know that that's going to actually happen, but
well,
I thought it was a good idea though.
Yeah, we'll see. It's we got to get creative nowadays. Jon, thank you so much for your time. The Hall of Famer, Jon Miller. Adios and aloha, and that's all my goodbyes that I have.
All right, shaka.
That's right. Take care, Jon.
All right, guys, thanks.
With authority.